Welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. My name is Molly McLaughlin, and I own a company that optimizes sleep through technology, accountability, and behavioral change. Each week, I'll be interviewing world-class experts ranging from doctors, innovators, and thought leaders to give actionable tips and strategies that you can implement to become a more skillful sleeper. Let's jump into your dose of practical sleep training. Welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. If you have listened to any of these episodes so far, you might have gathered that I went through my own sleeping struggles, which led me to the creation of Sleep is a Skill when at some of my lowest points, I went to the doctors and was given benzodiazepines. And that's a big concern for me. I have many family members that have gone down the path of pharmaceuticals, particularly benzodiazepines, and I've seen how damning they can be when given for the long term. There might be short-term efficacy, but they are not approved for long-term use in the same way that we might see people utilizing them, particularly for sleep. Very, very concerning, some of the impacts that long-term use can bring about for sleep. And I'm quite passionate on this topic, which is why I'm really excited for you to hear from Melissa Bond. Now, this is kind of a different interview. In previous episode, or many of our episodes, we are interviewing different doctors or experts in the field of sleep, looking at kind of specialized sleep technology, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a personal story, and Melissa is a writer, a narrative journalist, and she has written a book called Blood Orange Night, and it's her memoir about becoming dependent upon and withdrawing from benzodiazepines. So I'm going to read a little bit about Melissa's background so you understand a bit more, but she really does a great job of explaining and then going to the source and some investigative journalism to understand just why this is such a problem in the sleep community, but also from a larger concern of this long-term benzodiazepine use. If you are interested in this topic, we also have some great episodes that I would encourage you to take a look at. One with the Benzo Information Coalition and the other with Dr. Anna Lemke from Stanford. So those are two great resources to further go down the rabbit hole on this very, very concerning topic. So if any of you are taking benzodiazepines for your sleep, I really, really encourage you to get educated. There are now black box warnings on benzodiazepines. And it's really, really important to align yourself with a benzo-literate doctor so that you are both taking these as prescribed on a short-term basis, and if you found yourself in a long-term use of benzodiazepines, that you are aligned with professionals that can help support you there. So Melissa's backstory. Melissa Bond is a narrative journalist, poet, and a regular at the Salt Lake City slam scene. The Salt Lake Tribune and the New York Post have both done features on Bond's book, Blood Orange Night, her memoir about becoming dependent upon and then withdrawing from benzodiazepines. Blood Orange Night was published by Simon & Schuster in June 2022 and was selected by the New York Times as one of the best audiobooks of 2022. Bond has been featured on PBS Story, In the Public Square, Radio West, and podcasts Risk, Endeavors, Psychology Unplugged, and New York Times podcast Radio West, and Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Learn more at melissaabond.com. If you've been listening to the Sleep is a Skill podcast, you know how passionate I am about understanding the metrics that impact our sleep. Well, I've got some exciting news to share. I've recently started testing a unique product from our newest partner, Mode and Method. Mode and Method is created by Longevity Labs and focuses on human performance and self-optimization. Their collaboration with the leading health researchers and sports scientists has birthed HRV Plus, an innovative nutritional supplement. This supplement aims to enhance heart rate variability, or HRV. You know, we're always talking about this, a key biomarker of our overall wellness by improving the endocannabinoid system tone and reducing inflammation. HRV isn't just a measure of heart health. It's a reflection of our sleep quality. Now, speaking in generalities, largely a higher HRV can equate to better stress management, a quicker recovery, and optimal mental performance, all contributing to deeper, more restorative sleep. HRV Plus hopes to promote a balanced autonomic nervous system, aims to bolster your immune system, and is composed of natural, high-quality ingredients. And here's a unique opportunity that Mode and Method has offered to us. They're extending a special offer to the first 10 listeners who use code SLEEPISASKILL, all one word, at modemethod.com. Here's the cool part. You're not only going to receive a 15% discount on your purchase, but you'll also get an exclusive chance to participate in an innovative HRV study that's being conducted by Longevity Labs, along with, this part made me excited, a 15-minute HRV consultation. And this is absolutely guaranteed for all of you that do purchase that 15-minute HRV consultation, which don't snooze on that one. That could be very valuable. And for the first 10 of you, you will get access to that HRV study and be able to participate in that. So really don't miss out on this opportunity to further explore the science of sleep and make tangible improvements. We want this to be both objective and subjective. So visit modemethod.com and use my code SLEEPISASKILL, all one word, and join in on the mission of revolutionizing our sleep. And welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. Melissa Bond, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We were just going back and forth before we hit record, all kinds of similarities and things in common. Cannot wait to dive in even deeper with you and understand more of your backstory and how you came to write such an important book in the world of benzodiazepines and their impact on our health and well-being, and certainly in this conversation on our sleep. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh my God, it's a pleasure. And it has been so fun already.
Yes, already. Amazing. The sky's the limit. And, you really stand as such a shining example for me. And I hope for the listener of what can be possible, even if we do find ourselves on this path unintentionally for most people, of suddenly having this particular relationship. And you can explain your relationship with benzodiazepines, but I'm really on a mission to help spread the word of real concerns around long-term benzodiazepine use taken as prescribed, and yet the real deleterious effects that can really come about, certainly on sleep and for health in general, and mental health and otherwise. So really, really passionate about this topic. And you have really taken on a leadership role in sharing your story and getting your book out. So if you can just share a little bit about that and help us understand what happened and what had you be so passionate about this to write a book.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, so I love that you said that it's something that we all share. We all want good sleep. We all want good health. We want good mental health. And we hit these times in our lives where things can just crash. So for me, I called it my personal Fukushima. There was this like earthquake, tsunami, nuclear meltdown. And what that looked like in my life was I was editor of a magazine. Things were going great. I was married. I had my first child. When I got pregnant with my second child, in short order, and my first child also has special needs. So what I'm describing are these series of stressful events that I think your listeners can relate to in their own lives. So
of course,
got pregnant with my second child really quickly after my first, lost my job in the recession. The magazine I was working for closed. And then my marriage was really crummy. Those stressors, all of a sudden, I woke up one day I was going to sleep one night and I felt as though someone had hit my heart with a shot of adrenaline. Like I lurched up physically and was like, and from that point forward I was, 2 to 3 weeks pregnant. I started sleeping maybe 1 to 3 hours a night. Like I was barely getting enough sleep. And, so my story is very, very pathological insomnia. But I think a lot of people have something that's a little less, but still really debilitating. And 1 or 2 nights without sleep, you start losing cognitive function. You start having lots of physical symptoms. So that began this sort of desperate path for me, looking for everything, natural that I could do. I was seeing shamans, I was seeing naturopaths, I was doing alternate nostril breathing. Nothing was working. Yeah. So So I was so desperate. The nurse practitioner after my first trimester, she gave me Ambien,
Mm.
which was really kind of awful, but I slept 4 or 5 hours a night.
Yep.
After that, I just cold turkeyed the Ambien, which I now know you're not supposed to do because really it's called kindling in the brain. It sets the brain up for potential like easier addiction to the medications later. Also rebound insomnia. So
Yes.
my daughter was born, rebound insomnia happened, and I was like, in that state of desperation, like, oh my gosh, I have 2 infants now. I'm sleeping a few hours a night. I will do anything. So I saw an MD who also had like he billed himself as an alternative medical practitioner as an MD as well. And he gave me high dose benzodiazepines, which are a sedative hypnotic. People are familiar with them, like Xanax, Klonopin are the two really big ones. The one I was on is called Ativan.
Yeah.
And so I'll just finish the story. What happened was he prescribed really high dose. Within a couple of months, I was at 6 milligrams of Ativan per night, which is a really high dose.
Yeah.
Doctor prescribed. I always took, as he stated, and I fell apart. Like I literally started, I couldn't walk across a room without sort of stumbling or falling. I was having all kinds of weird neurological issues. I lost 20% of my body weight. I had been like a rock climber and like a yoga and world traveler. And all of a sudden I'm like, I can't walk down the street without like falling over.
Yeah.
And I finally, to just great luck, I found out that it was actually, I was in what's called withdrawal tolerance. So the drug itself metabolizes so quickly that you can hit withdrawals in between your doses. And I was in withdrawals while I was actively taking 6 milligrams of Ativan. Wow. So that's the start.
That's a big start. Okay. Take us through the timeline of this. At what point you're taking the 6 milligrams a night, you're having these withdrawal symptoms. It sounds like not realizing that. Now you're able to know this now, but unaware about this. And you've been taking it as prescribed, as it was given to you by your doctor. At what point did you say something is not right here? Paint that picture for us.
Yeah. So I think the decline was so quick.
Okay.
And I have to, speak to anyone who's been a parent. You go through that phase where you're not sleeping anyway. So everything becomes kind of blurry, like what's normal parenting exhaustion and what's something that's really concerning.
Sure.
So I was in that kind of intermediary state, probably for a year, taking the same dose every single night. But what happened was I was getting my daughter out of the tub one night and had put her in her towel, was walking out, and I literally, like, my muscles worked 1 second, and the next second it was like all my muscle tone had just disappeared. And I'm suddenly falling towards this corner wall and watching my daughter's little nubby head like shoot towards this corner wall that's going to split her, skull open. And I flip and I hit my shoulder so I could protect her. And I'm laying there, Molly, and I was like, okay, I've got a brain tumor, or I've got multiple sclerosis, or some kind of undiagnosed neurological disorder. Like, we have got to figure this out. This is totally not normal. And then, like, within 45 seconds, boom, all my muscle tone came back, and it was like nothing had happened. And so that was the moment. And I got up and I thought, the only thing that has really changed, besides being a mother, could potentially point to something this severe, is the medication. And I went and I looked online and I found this surplus. It was amazing of information. Most of the really reliable information coming out of the UK. A doctor named Dr. Heather Ashton, who is now deceased, but just has served us tremendously. And I realized all of these symptoms were clearly symptoms of benzodiazepine withdrawal. I would have never put those pieces together. I just lucked out, and that's what I worry about the people. That's part of why I wrote the book, because it's not this like correlative thing like you have with a lot of other medications where you overdose, respiration stops, and you die. With benzos, there's this kind of bizarre series and huge number of possible symptoms that can come out that don't make sense and that sound like a number of other things like Lyme disease or GI disorders, Crohn's disease. And so people start chasing their tail, like, all of these symptoms, and they don't think that it's actually the benzos that have been prescribed by their doctor.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you wrote the book because I think that this is such an epidemic. I mean, just numbers alone, so many people that are taking these drugs over the long term. And we understand that even they were designed, our thinking is for short term and certainly not long term. And yet, unfortunately, many people are and didn't have that interruption or didn't take that path that you took after a year and change. And instead, they've got 20 years on them or more, right? Of taking these things. And it is alarming once you do start going down the rabbit hole of the number of stories that are out there of people, just their entire lives uprooted. And I often share about for my story of going down difficulty with sleep and insomnia. And I also feel really grateful that mine was only ended up being about 4 months or so of taking benzos during that period. So I'm really grateful that I was able to get off of those. But in the process, even in that short period of time, I remember writing out a list of, and I've actually never talked about this on the podcast, but I wrote out a list, you're making me think of it, it was something, I counted it out, it was like 36 bizarro symptoms that I never had before taking these things. And it was strange things like jerking of the nerve, like of the hand, right? And almost like kicks. And I remember thinking, do I have MS? That would be one of the things that would come out, and you nailed it, that many people will try to troubleshoot what is going on with me. And you land in these different paths of bizarre hypothesis on what could be at play. And thankfully, from the sounds of it, you were able to discern, all right, this one variable shifted. I started taking this high dose benzodiazepines, and here I am now a year and change later with these symptoms. So help us then walk through so that for people that are listening that maybe are taking these or they know someone that's taking these, because I think it's so important then when we have examples of people that are on the other side. And I feel like you stand as one of these examples that is so inspiring. So how did you get out of that situation? You're on the ground with your baby, and how did you get to where you're at now?
Right. Which is the really important part. So identifying it was huge.
Yes.
And then for me, first of all, doing the research that I should have done in the first place. But, when you get to a place where you're really desperate, you kind of just trust your doctor. You're like, okay, I'm putting my faith in you. So I did a bunch of research. I looked for a doctor that would work with me. The biggest thing that I have to illustrate to your listeners is that you never go cold turkey.
Yes.
It is like, the way I describe it is these are like fish hooks that are in the fish of your brain matter. And if you pull those out really quickly, you can do damage that may be irreversible. You can have a fatal seizure. You can have a psychotic break. At best, you'll have much more severe withdrawal symptoms. So it took me 4 months. This is what's so crazy. 4 months to find a doctor that was qualified and had a lot of experience in a patient-led taper. So what's recommended, there's a great organization called Benzodiazepine Information Coalition. So
the best.
Anyone that's looking for support, look to them. They have a lot of great information. They recommend you reduce like 5 to 10% of your dose, like per week. And then you just see how your brain and your body respond. And if you re-regulate. And so that's what I did. It took me, honestly, I would say I tried with one doctor for about 4 months. We didn't have the right information, and I was having seizures. I was just I was going downhill even worse. And she finally said, I can't get you off these things, which is why I found an expert. Yeah. So we did that reduction, and it took me about a year and a half to get off with like acute withdrawals almost the entire time, but it was manageable. Like I was able to know, like, okay, these are withdrawals. They will get better after a couple days. stabilize, you go back down it again, because the brain is just so sensitive and gentle, and you have to just know, like, slow is the grace that you give your brain when you're doing this. So yeah.
So it's slow, that slow taper, knowing you never, ever, ever. I love that analogy. I've never heard of that too. The hooks in the fish. That's really well said, because it can be so, so dangerous. And I've shared often that I have a family member, close family member, who unfortunately did do a cold turkey from 3 milligrams daily of Xanax and nearly died, dealt with a psychotic break and a number of things. So certainly have seen what that can look like firsthand. And then with many, many clients that come our way that are either downstream from this or in the process or exploring. And there's so many different stages that people might be at, but hearing your story, I think, is so important, that it gets better. Brain can heal, I think, is the message I'm hearing. And that when you have a plan and you have partnership with people that are really educated on this topic, it can make all the difference. So the first person couldn't really manage this process. So you kept looking, kept advocating for yourself, partnered, or in partnership or awareness from the information that comes up from Benzo Information Coalition. You find this other practitioner and you're able to together get off eventually after around 1.5 years, I think you said, or so.
Yep. 1.5 years of working with him. Yep.
Okay. Amazing. And so now on the other side of that, do you feel like it's the awareness of what to expect, what's coming down the pike, having that partnership, knowing that this too shall pass? What are some of the things that you share with people so that they know that they can indeed get through this and they're not going to just keep falling back, to how it was for them?
Right. I mean, there are a number of things that are going to be crucial, right?
Okay.
One of them is establishing a really, really solid support system of people that can support, like, whatever your lifestyle is. Like, I had 2 infants.
Sure.
That was brutal, figuring out how to make sure they had support. That I didn't want them to see me in active withdrawals. So I had a friend's house that I could go to during the day to, like, because I would have muscle tremors. I would sometimes have seizures. So I wanted to protect them. So kind of really looking at this, like, this is a major life effort. This is going to require structure that can support, like, if people are working, they have to figure out, how can I do this while I'm working? And that might even make it slower. And then figuring out what is going to support my nervous system. And that is going to be, like, all of the basics, it just immense focus on nutrition, exercise if you can. Sometimes you're so weak just walking. Yeah. There are going to be no good this is what my doctor told me, the one I worked with. He's like, you're going to have no good chemicals in your brain. So exercise is going to be the only thing. Endorphins is all you've got. So I'm like, okay. I would have to have a meta awareness of, like, when I would have these emotional swings where I would be, like, either in, like, the depths of despair or in rage. And I would be like, okay, I'm going to go walk the Benzo dogs right now because I am so enraged and there's no one in particular, but I would have to have an outlet somehow and have that meta awareness that you're going to have all of these things happening. And yet it is your path to healing. Like, as you're moving forward, those will slowly, slough off. There will be these windows that are like, wow, I feel normal. They will get bigger and they will get bigger. And the more you really take on and advocate for yourself and your own health, all the way across the board, it will get better, and your brain just continues to heal.
So important. Wow. Okay. So that's such a fantastic way to look at it, and having that awareness and setting yourself up for success. And to your point, certain considerations that might be at play. If you are going to a 9 to 5, what that looks like. Maybe you adjust your taper structure mindfully with your practitioner that is in this conversation with you, leveraging things like exercise, some of these mindset perspectives, knowing that this too shall pass, or maybe not this too shall pass, but but the windows will augment over time and you'll actually get to experience life from that new perspective of feeling normal. Imagine that on the other side of it. So it is worth these steps that we're going through. Now, I wanted to ask you, because a number of people will send our way, links to rehab facilities or different places where there's the promise of we can get you off of your benzos in a particular structure or methodology. Do you have any call outs for people that are in that place and they are just kind of desperate and they want to get off of these things, or any cautionary concerns?
I'm going to throw out the cautionary flag on that, because one of the things that was actually the biggest asset for me was doing acupuncture. And I'm going to call out an organization called POCA. It's People's Organization for Community Acupuncture. And they have a model that allows you to pay basically what a copay would be per acupuncture session.
Oh, wow.
So I was going 3 times a week, paying $15 per session. So about the amount of one copay for my insurance. And it began to rewire my nervous system. So that's one thing.
Wow.
That was just, they're all over, especially the Western United States, but I would definitely look them up and see if they're anywhere near your state.
Great.
Also, what my acupuncturist told me, which I will just repeat because it makes so much sense, is when you do those rehab facilities, they're paid by insurance. Insurance will only pay for a certain number of days.
Sure.
So their job is to get you off so that you don't die or have a psychotic break. It does not set your brain up for optimal healing.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we do not have a model in the United States that can support a very long taper, which is the most healing for your brain. So when I ended up saying to myself, I've got to create this for myself because there's nothing long-term. I've got to make sure that I'm eating well. I've got to make sure I have the support. I've got the doctor. What are the things that are going to support my nervous system while I'm going through it so I don't lose my squash?
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, that's where we're at in this country right now. We're, I think, advocating for something more robust because so many people struggle. But I think those short-term actually will set you up for a more difficult healing trajectory.
So smart. Okay. And in alignment, if anyone missed your recommendation too for the Benzo Information Coalition, again, just to underscore, and we've done an episode with them in the past as well, just tremendous, resource support and can, potentially help you just connect with some of these, benzo literate doctors and, a path so that you're not just trying to figure all this out on your own, which can just be maddening. So having said that, then I wonder if you can share a little bit for us about your sleep, kind of what you experienced along the way and what your sleep's like now. Help kind of guide us on your relationship with your sleep, both with benzos and without.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things with benzos is that, my sleep would get better for a period of time, which we know in the clinical trials, efficacy starts waning after about 4 weeks. And so that was my experience. So I was kind of in this catch-22, which I think a lot of people listening, if they're on anything like this, they know what that's like. So now, I had to kind of do this, support my nervous system as much as possible, wean really slowly, make sure that my sleep was like my Achilles heel. So if I stopped sleeping, I knew I was going too fast. So for me, my sleep now is great. Like I feel like I'm kind of have the normal thing. I'll wake up sometimes at 3.
Sure.
But then I go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I have techniques now, like my sleep toolkit involves kind of the things that you would expect. So really, really good nutrition, really, exercise that is really consistent, that helps me kind of get all of the good, endorphins moving through. Also, I still do acupuncture at least once a week. I do meditative practices. I will call out, there is one that you can just YouTube. It's called Open Focus. It was developed by a Dr. Les Femi. And his interest, he was really a biofeedback researcher, but he was interested in how do we get people to move through various brainwave states, and how do we get someone to a state of really, really deep relaxation in a quick period of time. And so I would listen to him talking. There's a guy, Jonathan Faust, who actually does a lot of them on YouTube. And if I'm having like a more stressful day, or I will do those during the day, and they actually do a really good reset of getting my brainwave activity to a much slower, calmer state. So that's part of my toolkit as well. Those are the things that have worked for me. And I think everyone will develop their own, but it's important to have those and to use them consistently.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, that's really amazing. And we mentioned that you wrote this book about your whole experience. And
right. Blood Orange Night. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So Blood Orange Night is the book. And so for anyone listening, what could they expect out of that book? Would we see more about your journey, more details, get them to understand that they're not alone, some of the practices that you went through? Did you talk about the sleep component? Let us know what they might get.
Yeah, I think, okay, so the book goes through basically the point at which I was healthy enough to kind of go out on my own. Like my husband and I split, but what I had wanted when I designed the book was, I thought, there are a lot of like helpful books out there on how to get off of benzodiazepines or how to sleep well. But I wanted a book that would really, from like a first person narrative, take people through the journey of what it felt like. Because, sometimes there are people that, their partner is experiencing, but they don't understand what it's like. So it is a pretty, I've heard people say it's kind of a rough read, but it's also really funny, I hope.
Good.
But it's, there are times where it's just like hard to even believe that be like you were talking about your symptoms. So it gets to the point, the paperback is coming out this June, and I have an additional chapter where I talk about actually giving the doctor that gave me the benzos the book, and he and I talking about insomnia. So that was a really huge thing. Like I was so scared to give him the book. I was just terrified, but it ended up being an amazing experience. And so I think I talk about the sleep, but I don't necessarily, I think maybe in a couple of other chapters, I definitely talk about acupuncture, but you will have the experience and you will definitely be a little scared of benzos after.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for us to have a healthy dose of, really understanding what it is that we are taking on and being informed, participants in this process. Because unfortunately, I think so many people, your story is so relatable to many listeners that it happened by chance or, casually or innocently. And all of a sudden years look very different on the other side. So I think this is super, super important. So again, thank you for the work that you're doing. And I think I love that you included this chapter around giving the book to your doctor. And because it really believe that this is a systemic problem where, for instance, on the sleep piece, we often mention how the average, say, primary care doctor has gotten around 2 hours of training in sleep, which is alarming. I mean, that's out of Harvard Medical, some of the best and the brightest, and yet 2 hours on average. And so we've got a systemic problem where there's just unfortunately there's a lack of awareness in some of the steps they're taking. They think that they're, making a difference or helping to support a problem. Here's a problem, here's a solution, here's a pill. And yet we now are understanding, and no pun intended, hopefully waking up to the concern that is on the other side. So and I really appreciate you with your skill set of your gift of, their ability to write and be a journalist in this area is just so needed. Really important. So we do ask of every person that comes on the podcast 4 questions on how they're now managing their sleep. So maybe we can learn what life looks like for you now and anything pertinent that the listener might be able to take away. And also just envisioning, oh my gosh, okay, this person was on high dose benzos and look at them having, a normal life. So I think this is really important too for that framing. So for you, what would we see on your nightly sleep routine nowadays?
Right. So the one thing that I'll say about this is that consistency is everything.
Yeah.
You can't like treat your body poorly and then expect like, okay, I'm going to do sleep hygiene tonight and then have it work. So,
Yes.
so it's an all day, like my nutrition is always really good. I just got off coffee. I'm super proud of that.
Wow. I'm proud of you with that too. Amazing.
So I was super excited about that. But I always, it's all the typical stuff. I go to bed at the same time. I make sure that I'm not on a screen at least several hours before,
Sure.
because I do a lot of work and I'm right on the computer. I make sure that I have like a breath work practice that I do. And if I kind of gauge like how stressful was the day, and if I need something to kind of calm my nervous system, I'll do a meditation or, I'll do sort of some stretching. And really, I think having, and the acupuncture, like I can't say enough, like for me, that really keeps, I really feel like it does rewire the nervous system to a state of like greater sympathetic moments. So that is a crucial part. And then, just consistency, I think those are the main things. And I have a lot of books on my nightstand. So
same.
I'll just sit there and read and that'll just put me out.
Ah, that's amazing. Fantastic. And I like your checking and engaging how stressful the day was and then taking action in alignment with that to support, whatever is going on. Because of course, life is dynamic and something that might work one night, we might need a little bit more TLC than other nights. So really important.
Oh, and magnesium baths.
Oh, sure. Magnesium baths.
Oh, they're good.
Fantastic. And you're making me also want to check out bringing in a bit more acupuncture into my life. I appreciate that call out. Amazing. So you do those processes by night. What might we see by day? So we make the argument that how we set up our day or our mornings can support our sleep. Any important rituals or routines?
I think I feel pretty lucky that I can wake up naturally just because I wake up really early. So I don't have any kind of like alarm clock.
Yep.
I get up. I actually write in my journal every morning, which is kind of a really good practice for me to kind of figure out anything that might be like on my mind or stressing me. And it kind of lays everything out. I have my mushroom tea in the morning. And then I do like a nice walk in the morning to just kind of, I also think the like, what do they call it? The cross when you're doing any kind of exercise that you're crossing the meridian.
Yes.
I'm thinking of things that will help me neurologically. So I'll just do like a quick walk on the treadmill or around the block. And that sets me up for like real, like sort of calm start to my day where I've attended to myself and like what I'm feeling. And then I've filled my bucket enough that I can really like get my kids ready and attend to the day.
So smart. Okay, fantastic. And then what might we visually see on your nightstand or proverbial nightstand if you're traveling? And I know you mentioned books. Any other call outs that we might see there?
I have earplugs.
Nice. Okay, fantastic.
Really I do have a bottle of melatonin if there's like a night that's tough. Like I will sometimes use that. And then I do have my cell phone, even though I only use it if I need to do an open focus meditation.
Okay.
So I'll have something that has an app that can help me if I'm, if it's been like a really stressful day. And I have teenagers. So let me just tell you, like, if there's anything that's testing my, nervous system, it's having teenagers.
Oh, totally. Yes. So that's part of your nightly gauge.
Yep.
How intense for the teenagers? Totally. Yep. Okay. Fantastic. And then I'm curious. I mean, I feel like I might know the answer to this, but maybe not. So our last question is always, what has made the biggest change to your sleep game, or said another way, maybe the biggest aha moment in managing your sleep?
Honestly, I think I'm going to say naps and acupuncture.
Oh,
yeah.
Great. So say more.
Yep. So the acupuncture, because while I was in withdrawals, I could not nap at all. It was the only place I would actually get to such a deep state of rest that I would nap. And so now when I try to take naps during the day if I can. And it really does do that neurological reset of like, oh yes, this is what it's like to get to that stage of rest.
Yes.
And your body, you've got to think of it as like you're building muscle in this, you're building the sleep muscle. And you want to continually remind your body of what it is like to get to that level of rest. And that takes
Absolutely.
consistency and practice.
Wow, really cool. Well, it's interesting. I love that you found this modality around the acupuncture and that it really made a difference for you because we do hear, and real quick, I know tangenting us, but many people, when they are going through benzo withdrawal, they might look to different types of supplements that they could take or various things, but there are concerns, right? About, and you can help educate us on maybe layering into a brain that's already been dealing with some of these
Right.
things, adding
Right.
more things in. Were there any call-outs for you around that? Like, did you take, besides, I know you mentioned the magnesium baths now, but was there anything else, and the melatonin, but is there anything else that you did take or would caution people from taking during those times?
I know some people talked about taking GABA or melatonin while you're withdrawing. And the analogy that I use is your brain is almost like an open wound at that point. And so
Yes.
be really cautious about adding anything that will affect the brain in a big way. So I did feel fine about magnesium, minerals, making sure that my nutrition was healthy, but it's almost like you're almost in a burn unit. Like you've got to be extremely cautious and gentle. And I think jumping into the supplements would confuse the brain
Yes.
more than support it.
Yes. So well said. Okay, so much wisdom. And I know that we only just scratched the surface on the topic of your story. And I know this is, we're wrapping up in a nice little pretty bow, but I'm sure there was so many layers. And I know there's so many layers that we didn't even get to. So one, was there anything we left out that you want to say as it relates to, benzodiazepines or anything that's there for you that we didn't cover?
I think I'll just quickly say two things.
Sure,
One thing
please.
is I'm not anti-benzo. I think
Okay.
they're appropriate as needed,
Yeah.
but they're an emergency medicine. I call them like the hammers in the pharmaceutical toolkit. Like you do not need a hammer for everything. If
Yeah.
someone's having a grand mal seizure, you need a hammer.
Yeah.
Or if, perhaps even in sleep, like I don't necessarily think I would recommend it because you just need it the next night. So,
Yeah.
but in surgeries, things like that, like
Sure.
I think we have to be very cautious. The other thing I want to really clarify is that I think what a lot of people experience with benzos is this sort of stealth, we've touched on it, but this stealth number of symptoms that come up that you're unaware of are related to the withdrawal. So, they can be GI issues. Some people think that they've got Crohn's disease or, IBS or something, or you can have muscle twitches. So just being really conscious that these drugs were never meant to be used long-term and that the FDA is now saying that they can be addictive within as early as like a week or two.
So important. I'm so glad you put it that way too. Stealth symptoms. Yeah, really, really huge because for anyone listening now, they might not have even factored in the prescription that they've been taking for years as being a part of some of their health concerns, or maybe they've been taking a small dosage. I have a lot of people say that they're over 70, over 80, and they've been taking these small, what they call, their baby doses of their Xanax or Klonopin for years and really don't think too much of it. And yet now might be dealing with some of these symptoms and certainly some of the impacts that we know can show up in sleep architecture and other things. So I appreciate you saying that and just being a bit of a journalist to take you as an example in this area of your life and really auditing what are the things that you're taking in, what are the impacts. Now there are real labeled warnings on benzodiazepines over the long term, thanks to some of the work done by Benzo Information Coalition and others really sounding the alarm. So really, really important. And just the work you're doing is crucial. So your book, how can people get the book? How can they learn more about you? The whole world of it.
So you can get the book. It's on Amazon. You can get it at your local bookstore.
Yeah.
It's in Barnes and Noble. The one cool thing, New York Times selected it as one of their favorite audiobooks of last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I read it. So you can listen to me more if you want.
That's great.
Yeah, so you can get it on Audible. I think it would be cool if you haven't gotten the book to wait until the paperback comes out because the additional chapter in there, I think, I just felt like it was such a good
Yeah,
closure to the whole thing,
sure.
you should be able to find it just about anywhere. So, and then you can also, if you go to my website, it's melissaabond.com. You can buy it off of there. So it should be pretty easy.
Amazing. Well, really, really thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and share your story and put pen to paper on this important piece. I mean, so many people, unfortunately, there are the sad tales where people don't make it through this journey or don't have the support system, or if they do get to the other side of it, they're just washing their hands of the whole topic. And so for you to take, the time and the emotional wherewithal to sit and help bring us along for your ride. Really, really important. And I hope that for anyone listening, because I have a lot of people come my way that are just so desperate with their sleep that they are really, there's an allure to the concept of, just knock me out. I want to be asleep. I can't deal with another night staring at the ceiling. Right. And so this also shows us that while that might on the short term feel appealing, there are so many other paths that we can take. And there's so many other things that you can be set up with, whether it's sleep specialists, whether, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, different approaches and modalities that we can explore besides this one. So thank you. And I appreciate you too. We're not trying to sit and, vilify or be, black or white. We know that there are times where some of these things can be important and useful, but there is a time and a place. So just really thank you so much for taking the time to be here. It means the world.
Oh, it's just been a pleasure talking with you. I so love what you're doing. I mean, it's like sleep is a core pillar of joy in this life, and not enough people are helping, so thank you so much. And you are just a delight to talk with.
Oh, well, the feeling is mutual. So more to come. We'll definitely have to connect more. And, and I know we chatted before we hit record, so maybe we'll be seeing you in Utah or something in the future. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Melissa.
All right. Thanks, Molly.
You've been listening to the Sleep is a Skill podcast, the #1 podcast for people who want to take their sleep skills to the next level. Every Monday, I send out something that I call Molly's Monday Obsessions, containing everything that I'm obsessing over in the world of sleep. Head on over to sleepisaskill.com to sign up.